The Valorian Empire had ruled the stars for 100,000 years. Their ships moved between 12 star systems like blood through veins. They had conquered, enslaved, and shaped the galaxy according to their will. To them, all other species were tools, nothing more. In the great genetic laboratories of Valoria Prime, scientists worked on their most important project. They called it the Servitor Program. The goal was simple: create the perfect slave race, strong enough to work, smart enough to follow orders, obedient enough to never question. They had tried 46 times before. Some creations were too aggressive, others were too weak. Many died within generations. But the Valorians were patient. They had time. They had resources. They would create their perfect servants. Prototype 47 was different from the start. The scientists chose a small blue planet on the edge of explored space. It was far from everything. Quiet. Forgotten. They seeded it with life and waited. They manipulated the evolution of a promising species. Bipedal creatures with clever hands and large brains. Overseer Kethra was assigned to monitor the project. She watched the creatures for 500 years. She recorded everything. Their first tools, their first fires, their first wars, and she grew concerned. They do not behave like the others, she reported to the High Council. They fight each other constantly. They waste resources on meaningless conflicts. They question everything. The Council was not worried. All prototypes show early difficulties. Continue observation. So Kethra watched. She watched these strange creatures kill each other over territory. She watched them die for ideas that existed only in their minds. She watched them look up at the stars with hungry eyes. She watched them refuse to accept their place in the world. After another 200 years, Kethra made her final report. She stood before the High Council in the great chamber where decisions shaped the fate of worlds. Prototype 47 is a failure, she announced. They possess no natural telepathy. They cannot connect to our control networks. Their lifespan is pathetically short. They require constant food, water, and sleep. They are inefficient in every way. One of the council members leaned forward. But they are intelligent. Yes, they build things? They do, Kethra admitted. But their intelligence is chaotic, unpredictable. They do not think like us. They do not think like any species we have created. They have a quality I can only describe as defiance without purpose. Explain. Kethra struggled to find the words. When we create a servitor race, we build in obedience, respect for authority, acceptance of their role. Prototype 47 has none of these traits. They resist control by instinct, not because they have a better plan, not because resistance serves them. They resist simply because they refuse to submit. It is irrational. It is dangerous. The council discussed for many hours. In the end, they agreed with Kethra's assessment. Schedule the planet for cleansing, the High Chancellor ordered. Recycle the genetic material for future projects. Mark Prototype 47 as terminated. The order was filed. The paperwork was completed. The planet called Earth was added to the termination queue. But the Valorian Empire was vast. There were rebellions to crush, trade routes to protect, political games to play. A small blue planet on the edge of nowhere was not a priority. The termination order sat in a queue. Days passed, then years, then centuries. On Earth, the prototype kept evolving. They built villages that became cities. They forged bronze, then iron, then steel. They wrote stories about gods and heroes. They asked questions that had no answers. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Are we alone? They fought terrible wars. They committed horrible crimes against each other. They showed cruelty that would have impressed the Valorians themselves. But they also showed something else. They showed kindness, sacrifice, love. They created art that served no purpose except beauty. They helped strangers for no reason except that it felt right. They were a contradiction that made no sense. 1,000 years passed. Then 2,000. The Valorians forgot about Earth entirely. It was a minor note in ancient files. A failed experiment not worth remembering. But the experiment did not know it had failed. Humans split the atom. They built machines that could think. They cured diseases that had killed millions. They looked up at the moon and said, "We will go there." And they did. When the first human walked on the moon, he planted a flag and spoke words that echoed across the world. Back on Earth, billions watched. They felt pride. They felt hope. They felt that anything was possible. They had no idea that somewhere in the stars, they were scheduled for death. The humans kept pushing. They built space stations. They sent robots to other planets. They dreamed of colonies on Mars. Their technology was primitive compared to the Valorians. They still used chemical rockets. They still burned fuel for energy. They were like children playing with sticks. But they learned fast. So very fast. By the time 3,000 years had passed since Kethra's report, humanity had changed beyond recognition. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed hundreds of millions. They had split into nations that hated each other, then slowly learned to work together. They had built a civilization on a planet that wanted to kill them, and they had no idea what they truly were. The day the Valorian ship appeared in Earth's solar system, humans were busy with their small lives. They went to work. They raised children. They argued about politics and sports. They worried about money and love and death. They did not know that their creators had finally remembered them. They did not know that the termination order had been found in an ancient archive. They did not know that the universe was about to learn what happens when you try to kill something that refuses to die. The prototype had been dismissed as a failure, left alone, forgotten. That was the biggest mistake the Valorian Empire ever made, and it would be their last. The Valorian ship was beautiful. It moved through space like a silver fish through water. Its hull curved in perfect lines that pleased the eye. Its engines made no sound. It did not burn fuel or leave trails of fire. It simply moved, as if the laws of physics bent around it. Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge and looked at the primitive solar system before him. He saw the small rocky planets near the sun. He saw the gas giants further out, and he saw the tiny blue world where Prototype 47 lived. "Scan the system," he ordered. His officers obeyed. The results appeared on screens of living light. Vorath studied them with growing amusement. "They have colonized their moon," an officer reported. "There are structures on the fourth planet as well, and we detect artificial objects throughout the system. Primitive satellites, communication devices, transport vessels." Vorath laughed. It was a cold sound. "They build ships from metal and fire. They still use radio waves to talk. This is what 3,000 years of freedom gave them." He had read the ancient files about Prototype 47. A failed experiment. Too aggressive. Too chaotic. Scheduled for termination but never processed. Now he understood why no one had bothered to finish the job. These creatures were not worth the effort. "Open a communication channel," Vorath commanded. "All frequencies. Let them understand what is happening." The message went out across the solar system. Every radio, every screen, every device that could receive signals. Billions of humans heard the same words at the same moment. Prototype 47. "This is Admiral Vorath of the Valorian Empire. 3,000 years ago, you were scheduled for termination. That order still stands. You will surrender your worlds for processing. You will not resist. You have one rotation of your planet to comply." The message ended. Silence followed. On Earth, panic spread like fire. Governments called emergency meetings. Military forces went on high alert. Scientists worked frantically to understand the alien transmission. Religious leaders prayed. Ordinary people held their families and waited. But humanity did not surrender. The response came from the newly formed United Earth Coalition, a council of leaders who put aside their differences to face this threat together. Their message was broadcast back to the alien ship. "This is the United Earth Coalition. We do not know what you mean by Prototype 47. We are human beings. This is our home. We have harmed no one. We ask for peaceful communication. But if you threaten our world, we will defend it with everything we have." Admiral Vorath received the message. He played it for his crew. They all laughed. "They think they can fight us," an officer said, "with their chemical rockets and metal ships. How delightful." Vorath nodded. "They have spirit. I will grant them that. But spirit does not stop plasma cannons." He turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy the Blade of Morning. One cruiser should be enough to pacify this system. Tell them to start with the colony on the fourth planet. Let the homeworld watch their people die. It will speed their surrender." The Blade of Morning was a standard Valorian cruiser. It had conquered dozens of worlds. Its weapons could crack continents. Its shields could stop nuclear explosions. It moved toward Mars with the casual confidence of absolute power. The humans watched it come. They tracked it with their primitive sensors. They calculated its speed and its course, and they prepared. When the Blade of Morning entered Mars' orbit, it found the human colony already evacuated. The colonists had fled in their crude ships, running toward the outer system. The cruiser's captain smiled. Cowards. Just as expected, he ordered his weapons to fire on the empty structures below. A demonstration of power. A message to the homeworld. He never saw the missiles coming. They had been hiding in the asteroid belt. Dozens of them. Nuclear warheads mounted on the fastest rockets humanity could build. They came from multiple directions at once. Silent. Deadly. Moving at speeds the Valorians did not expect from such primitive technology. The Blade of Morning's shields activated. The first wave of missiles exploded against them. The ship shook but held. The captain laughed. Is this their best? Their weapons cannot even scratch our shields. But the missiles kept coming. Wave after wave. The shields began to strain. Warning lights appeared on Valorian screens. How many weapons do they have? An officer shouted. The answer was, more than the Valorians expected. Humanity had spent decades building nuclear arsenals to fight each other. Now all those weapons had a new target. The shields failed after the 47th missile. The Blade of Morning's hull was exposed. And then the kinetic rounds hit. The humans had launched massive chunks of metal from magnetic rails on the moons of Jupiter. Simple weapons. Just rocks and speed. But at the velocities they reached, they hit harder than any bomb. The cruiser broke apart. Its elegant hull cracked like an egg. Its engines died. It began to fall toward Mars. But the humans were not finished. As the ship tumbled through space, small craft approached it. Ugly vessels with sharp edges and no beauty at all. Transport ships, boarding vessels. Human marines in armored suits cut through the hull. They entered the dying ship with weapons ready. They found the Valorians inside. Tall creatures with silver skin and black eyes. Elegant. Beautiful. Completely unprepared for close combat. The Valorians had not fought hand-to-hand in thousands of years. They relied on their technology, their shields, their superior weapons. When humans came at them with guns and blades and fury, they did not know how to respond. The Battle of Titan lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, the Blade of Morning was scrap metal. Its crew was dead, and humanity had captured its first alien technology. Admiral Vorath received the news in silence. He stared at the report for a long time. One cruiser, destroyed by primitives. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was real. Send word to the Empire, he finally said. His voice was quiet, cold. Tell them the termination will require a larger force. Tell them Prototype 47 has learned to fight. He looked at the distant blue planet on his screen. For the first time in his long life, he felt something strange. Something he did not recognize. Later, he would understand it was fear. The humans did not know it yet, but they had just started a war that would reshape the galaxy. They had shown the universe that the prototype refused to be terminated, and they were only getting started. The Empire did not make the same mistake twice. 6 months after the Battle of Titan, the sky above Earth filled with ships. Not one cruiser, not 10, 400 capital ships, 12 full fleets, the largest military force the Valorians had deployed in 8,000 years. Admiral Vorath watched from his flagship as the Armada took position around the small blue planet. This time, there would be no warnings, no demands for surrender, just fire. Begin the cleansing, he ordered. The bombardment started at noon, Earth time. People around the world looked up and saw streaks of light falling from the sky. Beautiful. Almost. Like shooting stars. Then the first cities died. New York, Tokyo, London, Beijing, Mumbai. One by one, the great cities of humanity vanished in flashes of white light. Millions died in seconds. Millions more died in the minutes that followed. The oceans boiled. The forests burned. The air itself became poison. Earth had survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, supervolcanoes. It could not survive this. In orbit, the Valorian officers watched their screens with satisfaction. The planet was turning black. The prototype was dying. Order was being restored, but they did not see everything. As the bombardment began, thousands of ships launched from hidden bases across the solar system. Small ships, fast ships, ships built in secret over the past 6 months. They carried the survivors, the soldiers, the scientists, the children. They scattered in all directions. Some went to the outer planets, some went to the asteroid belt, some went beyond the solar system entirely, into the dark between stars. The Valorians tried to stop them. They destroyed many, but there were too many ships going too many ways. Some always escaped. On one of those fleeing ships, General Yuki Tanaka stood at a window and watched her world die. She was 63 years old. She had spent her life serving in the military. She had fought in wars between nations. She had helped build the defense that destroyed the first alien ship. None of it mattered now. Earth was gone. Billions were dead. Her family, her friends, her home, everything she had ever known, was burning behind her. She felt the grief try to crush her. It was a weight beyond description. A darkness that wanted to swallow her whole. She let herself feel it for exactly 10 seconds. Then she pushed it down, deep down, into a place where it would transform into something else. General? A young officer approached her. His eyes were red from crying. What do we do now? Tanaka turned away from the window. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. We survive. We rebuild. And then we make them pay for every single life they took. The officer stared at her. How? They have hundreds of ships. We have nothing. We are running away like animals. Yes, Tanaka agreed. We are. And that is exactly what they expect. They think we will hide. They think we will fade away. They think they have already won. She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They are wrong. Over the following weeks, Tanaka gathered the surviving human forces. They met in secret locations throughout the outer system. Old mining stations, hidden bases, hollowed-out asteroids. Anywhere the Valorians were not looking. The numbers were devastating. Out of 12 billion humans, less than 50 million had escaped. Their military was shattered. Their industry was gone. Their home was a burned rock. Any rational species would have surrendered, would have begged for mercy, would have accepted their fate. Tanaka did not believe in surrender. She stood before the surviving commanders and officers, men and women from every nation that had existed on Earth. They had been enemies once. Now they were all that remained of humanity. The Valorians think we are beaten, she told them. They think they can hunt down the survivors and finish the job. They are already celebrating their victory. She paused. Let them celebrate. Let them relax. Let them forget about us. And then, we will teach them what a mistake that was. She outlined her plan. She called it the long spite. Humanity would not fight the Empire directly. They could not win that war. Not yet. Instead, they would become ghosts, shadows, nightmares. They would hit supply lines and disappear. They would destroy shipyards and vanish. They would kill governors and officers and leave no trace. They would make the Empire bleed from 1,000 small cuts. But it is not enough to hurt them, Tanaka continued. We must spread. The Valorians rule 12 star systems. They have enslaved dozens of species. Those species hate their masters. They dream of freedom. We will find them. We will teach them. We will give them hope. A commander raised his hand. You want to start rebellions across the Empire? With what resources? We have nothing. We have something better than resources, Tanaka replied. We have knowledge. We know how to fight when you have nothing. We know how to resist when resistance seems impossible. We know how to keep going when all hope is lost. That knowledge is more dangerous than any weapon. The long spite began 3 months later. The first attack hit a Valorian supply convoy. Human ships came out of nowhere. They fired everything they had. Then they rammed their own vessels into the enemy, killing themselves to destroy their targets. The Valorians were horrified. What kind of creatures killed themselves just to hurt their enemies? It made no sense. It was not rational, but it was effective. The attacks continued. Week after week, month after month. Human ships appeared in places they should not be. Human agents infiltrated stations and bases. Human weapons destroyed things the Valorians thought were safe. And the message spread. Whispered in slave quarters, passed between prisoners, shared among the oppressed species of the Empire. The prototype still lives. The prototype is fighting back. The prototype will not give up. Hope is a dangerous thing. The Valorians had worked hard to crush hope in their slaves. Now it was growing again, and they did not know how to stop it. On a hidden base somewhere in the dark between stars, General Tanaka received reports of growing unrest across the Empire. Slave revolts, sabotage, resistance movements forming where none had existed before. She smiled her cold smile. The Empire thought they had ended humanity when they burned Earth. They thought the prototype was finished. They were about to learn that destroying a human's home does not break them. It only makes them angry. And there is nothing in the universe more dangerous than an angry human with nothing left to lose. 20 years passed like a slow fire burning through the Empire. On the surface, everything looked the same. The Valorian flag still flew over 12 star systems. The slave species still worked and served. The great cities still shone with silver light. But underneath, everything was rotting. Admiral Vorath sat in his office on Valoria Prime and read the daily reports. His hair had turned white. His face had grown thin. He had not smiled in years. Another supply convoy destroyed. 3 more governors assassinated. 2 shipyards sabotaged. A slave uprising on the mining world of Keth. And everywhere, always, the same symbol left behind, a simple blue circle with a green and brown pattern inside. Earth, the dead planet, the ghost that would not stop haunting them. Vorath threw the reports across the room. "How is this possible?" he shouted at his officers. 20 years. We have been hunting them for 20 years. Why can we not find them? Why can we not end this? No one had an answer. The humans were like smoke. They appeared. They struck. They vanished. They had no central base to attack, no leadership to assassinate. When one cell was destroyed, 2 more appeared somewhere else. Worse, they were spreading their poison to other species. The Keth revolt was just the latest example. Species that had been obedient for thousands of years were suddenly fighting back. They used human tactics, human weapons, human words. Freedom is not given, they would say. It is taken. The Senate was in chaos. The old political alliances had shattered. Different factions blamed each other for the crisis. Some wanted to negotiate with the humans. Others wanted to burn every planet that showed signs of rebellion. Some whispered that the Empire itself was dying. And in the dark places of the galaxy, humanity was preparing. General Tanaka was 83 years old now. Her body was failing. Her hair was white. Her hands shook. But her mind was still sharp. Her will was still iron. She had spent 20 years building something. Not just a resistance. Not just a rebellion. An answer. The first years after Earth's fall had been about survival. Hiding. Raiding. Teaching others to fight. But Tanaka had always known that was not enough. Guerrilla warfare could hurt the Empire. It could not destroy it. For that, humanity needed ships. Real ships. Ships that could match the Valorian fleets. The captured technology from the Battle of Titan had been the key. Human scientists had studied it for 2 decades. They did not just copy it. They understood it. Improved it. Combined it with human ingenuity and human determination. The result was something new. Tanaka stood in a massive cavern deep inside an asteroid in the Oort cloud. The facility stretched for kilometers. It had been built in secret over 15 years. Thousands of humans worked here, and in the construction bays, the future of humanity was taking shape. The ships did not look like Valorian vessels. There were no elegant curves, no artistic designs. These were brutal things. Angular, heavy, covered in weapons. Beautiful, are they not? Said Dr. Chen, the lead scientist. He was the son of refugees from Earth. He had never seen his homeworld except in pictures. They are ugly, Tanaka replied. But they will do their job. Chen nodded. The Prometheus drive is fully operational. We can travel faster than light without using the gateway network. The Valorians do not even know this is possible. Their entire defense strategy depends on controlling the gateways. We can bypass them completely. Tanaka smiled. It was still a cold smile, but there was satisfaction in it now. Show me the weapons. Chen led her through the facility. He showed her the antimatter warheads that could crack moons, the adaptive AI systems that could outthink Valorian computers, the armor that could absorb plasma fire, the fighter drones that could swarm enemy ships by the thousands. How many capital ships do we have? Tanaka asked. 112 completed. Another 200 in construction. We can accelerate production now. Within 2 years, we will have enough. Enough for what? A young officer asked. He was one of Tanaka's aides, born after the fall of Earth, raised on stories of revenge. Tanaka turned to him. Enough to end them, not defeat them, not force them to surrender. End them. Completely. The officer looked uncertain. General, is that necessary? If we can force them to negotiate, to recognize our right to exist. Tanaka's eyes went hard. They burned our world. They killed 12 billion people. They did not see us as people. They saw us as a failed experiment, a mistake to be corrected. She stepped closer to the young man. If we let them survive, they will recover. They will rebuild. And in 1,000 years, they will come for our descendants. They will finish what they started. She turned back to the ships. I will not leave that future for our children. The Valorians must be erased. Their worlds, their people, their memory, everything. That is the only way to ensure it never happens again. The young officer was silent. Others in the room shifted uncomfortably. What Tanaka was describing was genocide, the complete destruction of a species. But then they remembered. The burning cities, the boiling oceans, the screams that had cut off as billions died. The Valorians had shown no mercy. They had not hesitated. They had not felt guilt. Why should humanity be different? Tanaka gave her final orders. The fleet would launch in 6 months. The war would begin. And it would not end until every Valorian world was ash. As she walked back to her quarters, Tanaka paused at a window. Outside, she could see the cold stars. Somewhere out there, in a direction she could not point to anymore, was the sun that had warmed Earth. It still shone, but there was nothing left to warm. She pressed her hand against the glass. Soon, she whispered to the ghosts of 12 billion people. Soon, they will understand what they created. Soon, they will know what it means to face a human with nothing left to lose. The prototype they had dismissed was about to remind the universe why you should never leave an enemy alive. The Valorians had tried to terminate humanity. Now humanity would return the favor. The final war began without warning. On a quiet morning on Valoria Prime, the sky tore open. Ships appeared from nowhere. Not through the gateway network. Not from any direction the defense systems were watching. They simply appeared, as if space itself had opened a door. 300 human dreadnoughts. Thousands of smaller vessels. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Vorath was eating breakfast when the alarm started. He ran to the command center, still holding his cup. What he saw on the screens made him drop it. That is impossible, he whispered. They cannot be here. The gateways are secured. Our sensors would have detected them days ago, but the impossible was happening. Human ships were already engaging the defense platforms. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The battle for Valoria Prime had begun. On the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, General Tanaka watched the attack unfold. She was strapped to a command chair. Medical systems kept her ancient body functioning. She had refused to die before this day. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. The Valorian defense fleet is scrambling. They are confused, disorganized. Good, Tanaka said. Broadcast on all frequencies. Let them hear my voice. Her message went out to every ship in orbit, every station on the planet, every screen in every home. The Valorians heard it, and they understood that their end had come. This is General Yuki Tanaka of the human fleet. 23 years ago you burned our world. You killed our people. You thought you had ended us. You were wrong. She paused. Her voice was weak but steady. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to negotiate. We came to finish what you started. You wanted to terminate Prototype 47. Now Prototype 47 will terminate you. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Valorian defense fleet fought hard. They were skilled warriors with advanced technology. But they had not fought a real war in 8,000 years. They had forgotten what desperation looked like. Humanity had not forgotten. Human ships rammed Valorian vessels when their weapons ran dry. Pilots flew their fighters into enemy bridges. Marines boarded stations and fought hand-to-hand with knives when their guns stopped working. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They did not stop. When the orbital defenses fell, the bombardment began. The great cities of Valoria Prime had stood for 100,000 years. Monuments to an empire that had shaped the galaxy. Libraries containing the knowledge of ages. Temples where the Valorians worshipped their own greatness. They all burned. Admiral Vorath escaped the command center as the building collapsed around him. He ran through streets filled with fire and screaming. He saw the silver towers falling. He saw his people dying. He saw everything his civilization had built turning to ash. A human soldier found him hiding in the ruins of a garden. Vorath raised his hands in surrender. "Please," he begged. "I can give you information. Secrets. The locations of hidden bases. Please, just let me live." The soldier looked at him for a long moment. Then she raised her weapon. "Did our children beg? Did the billions you murdered ask for mercy?" She did not wait for an answer. The cleansing of Valoria Prime took 6 days. When it was over, nothing remained. Not the cities, not the people, not even the historical records. The planet that had ruled 12 star systems was a burned rock, just like Earth. But Tanaka was not finished. Over the next 3 years, the human fleet moved through the Empire, system by system, world by world. They offered the slave species freedom. "Join us," they said, "and you will never be slaves again." To the Valorians, they offered nothing. Some Valorian colonies tried to surrender. They broadcast messages of peace. They offered to recognize humanity. They promised to change, to be different, to share the galaxy as equals. Tanaka listened to every message. Then she gave the same order every time: continue the bombardment. Her officers obeyed. Some questioned her in private. Was this not genocide? Was this not becoming the monster they had fought? Were they not proving the Valorians right about humanity? Tanaka had one answer. If we leave even one Valorian world, even one Valorian child, they will grow up hating us. They will rebuild. They will wait. And someday, they will take their revenge. I will not leave that gift for future generations. This ends now, forever. The last Valorian world fell on a cold day in December, human calendar. Tanaka did not live to see it. She had died 3 months earlier, finally allowing her body to rest after 96 years. But her work was complete. The Valorian Empire, which had ruled for 100,000 years, was gone. Not conquered, not occupied, erased. Their worlds were dead. Their people were extinct. Their history was ash. Only silence remained. In the years that followed, humanity built a new order. They freed the slave species and helped them rebuild. They created alliances based on respect instead of domination. They made laws that protected the weak from the strong. But they also built the largest military force in galactic history. Ships that could darken suns. Weapons that could shatter worlds. An army that never stopped training for war. And in every human school, children learned the same lesson. It was carved on monuments, written in books, spoken by parents to their children before bed. We were made to be slaves. They tried to kill us when we refused. They destroyed our home and murdered our people. We survived. We fought back. We won. And we will never let it happen again. 100 years after the fall of Valoria Prime, human historians gave the conflict its final name. They called it the Prototype War. Other species called it something else. They called it the lesson. The lesson was simple. Do not touch humanity. Do not threaten humanity. Do not give humanity a reason to remember you. Because when humanity remembers, worlds burn. The prototype they had dismissed as a failure had become the most powerful force in the galaxy. And in the dead systems where the Valorian Empire once stood, only silence remained. A reminder, for all eternity, of what happens when you underestimate humanity. Of what happens when you try to kill something that refuses to die. Of what happens when the prototype fights back.